The forest lay draped in shadow, the last smear of daylight fading into a bruised purple sky. Liam Cole's boots crunched over broken branches as he took the familiar trail home from the scrapyard. He had walked this path dozens of times, often, whistling to himself, his backpack heavy with salvaged metal and old engine parts. Tonight, though, there was no easy rhythm to his steps. The woods felt wrong. The silence pressed on him, thicker than usual, broken only by a low humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating faintly through the ground beneath his feet. He slowed, sniffing the air. A sharp, acrid tang clawed at his throat, burned. Ozone, hot metal, and something that reminded him of sparking wires. He frowned and adjusted the strap on his shoulder, scanning the treetops as if expecting them to reveal the source. The humming grew louder as he climbed the small hill that overlooked the clearing. Then he froze. Below him, bathed in the eerie light of a dying sunset, lay something that did not belong on Earth. A ship, no, a broken, alien thing was half buried in the soil, its hull split open like a cracked shell. Smoke curled from vents along its sides. The once silver surface had been scorched black, jagged fractures glowing faintly like the embers of some otherworldly fire. Shards of metal were scattered across the ground like shattered bones, and one of its stubby wings had been sheared off, lodged deep in the dirt a few feet away. Liam's heart pounded. He wasn't the kind of guy who scared easily. He had spent years crawling through abandoned factories and wrecked cars, but this looked like something torn from a movie. 100 thoughts raced through his head. Was this a government experiment? A meteor? Some new kind of drone? Yet curiosity gnawed at him stronger than fear. He descended the slope slowly, every crunch of his boots sounding too loud in the heavy quiet. As he drew closer, the heat from the wreck brushed his skin, and steam hissed through the air. He pulled his jacket sleeve over his mouth and stepped over a twisted panel, the sharp metal edges reflecting the faint light. Then he heard it. A sound soft and broken, drifting from the ship's interior, a whimper, high-pitched and trembling. Liam froze, listening. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't just noise. It was alive. His pulse kicked faster. The sound came again, faint but unmistakably human in its tone, as if someone was crying. He swallowed hard and pushed forward, following the sound toward an opening in the ship's side where the metal had buckled inward like crushed foil. Inside, the air was warm and metallic. Flickering blue panels cast dim light across the narrow hallway, most of them shattered or sparking. Wires dangled like dead vines and smoke coiled lazily near the ceiling. Liam picked his way carefully, ears straining for the next whimper, until he reached a small chamber at the end. There, between two collapsed support beams, was a girl. At least, she looked like a girl, slim and humanoid, about his age, her silvery white hair tangled and matted with soot. Her skin shimmered faintly as if dusted with starlight, and her wide, glowing violet eyes locked on him in terror. She clutched her side, her breathing shallow and ragged. When she saw him, she recoiled against the wall and hissed something in a language he didn't understand. "Whoa! Hey," Liam said quickly, raising his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." She flinched, but her voice, halting and accented, broke through. "You? Not soldier?" Liam blinked. "You speak English? Learning capsule?" "Taught me," she whispered, wincing as she shifted her weight. Crouched down slowly, keeping his movements deliberate. "You're hurt," he said, his voice softening. She hesitated, then nodded once. Blood silver and metallic, like liquid mercury, glistened along her side where part of her suit had melted. Beneath the torn material, he caught sight of a deep burn running along her ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to get out of there, but compassion shoved fear aside. He didn't care where she came from or what had happened to her. He couldn't just leave her like this. I'm getting you out of here, he said firmly. As he slipped an arm under her shoulders, the faint beeping of a nearby console caught his attention. The cracked display flickered, a red icon pulsing weakly. Words he couldn't read flashed across the screen, but he understood enough. A signal was being transmitted. Somewhere out there, something was listening and coming. Liam's workshop smelled of oil, rust, and the faint sweetness of machine polish. It was his sanctuary, a cramped shed on the edge of town filled with piles of old radios, dented carburetors, and engine blocks salvaged from cars that would never run again. Tonight, however, the place felt different. The dim overhead bulb hummed as he laid the alien girl gently on his workbench, clearing away tools with frantic sweeps of his hands. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Blood like molten silver seeped through the torn fabric of her suit, streaking the wooden surface beneath her. "Stay awake," he muttered, fumbling through his battered first aid kit. His hands trembled. This wasn't a cut from metal or a scrape from a broken gear. This was something out of another world. Her violet eyes tracked him with a mix of fear and curiosity. "You? Help me?" she asked, her voice halting, as if every word was dragged through a fog of pain. "Trying," Liam said, grabbing a rag and soaking it in antiseptic. "This might sting." He hesitated before pressing it against her wound. She flinched violently, gripping the edge of the bench hard enough that her knuckles, if you could call them that, gleamed like polished chrome. Her gaze flicked to him, intense and searching. Why? The question caught him off guard. Why? Was he helping? He could have left her in the woods. He could have called someone, police, military, anyone, but instead he had risked everything to carry her here. "Because you're hurt," he said simply, "and because I couldn't just walk away." She blinked, her expression softening just slightly. "Not soldier," she whispered again, as if reassuring herself. "No, not a soldier. I fix things." He paused, smirking despite the tension. "Engines, machines, you know? Boring human stuff." Her lips twitched like she didn't quite understand but wanted to dot as he worked. Liam couldn't help studying her. The faint shimmer of her skin looked like a reflection of distant stars. Her hair, if you could call the silken threads hair, was white, tinged with pale blue, and clung to her forehead in damp strands. He patched what he could with his limited supplies, but her biology was unlike anything he'd seen. Her wound didn't bleed like a human's. It pulsed, almost glowing. He used strips of thermal-resistant fabric to bind it, improvising as best. As his scavenger's instincts would allow, "Name?" he asked as he tightened the bandage. She hesitated. "Elari," she said finally, her voice soft but steady. "Liam," he replied, meeting her gaze. For a long moment, the shed fell silent, except for the steady hum of the light and the distant chirping of night insects. Then the silence shattered. A sharp beep erupted from the small device he'd salvaged from her ship. The cracked alien panel glowed red, a symbol flashing like a heartbeat. Liam turned to it, frowning. "What is that?" Elari's eyes widened, panic flooding her face. "Hunters," she breathed. "Hunters? What do you mean?" "Signal. They find me." Her voice was trembling now. She sat up too quickly, hissing in pain. "We must hide?" "Ship is beacon." Liam's gut tightened. He imagined whatever had shot her down wasn't done yet. He grabbed the nearest scanner and swept it over the forest through his open window. The screen flickered with static, then stabilized, showing faint blips moving slowly across the tree line. Too fast and too precise to be birds or random wildlife. "You're telling me they're coming here?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. She nodded, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They always come." Something primal stirred inside Liam, not fear, but defiance. He looked at her, this fragile being who'd somehow survived a crash that would have killed anyone else. "Then we don't just sit and wait. We'll make sure they don't find you." Her expression shifted, a mixture of doubt and hope. "You would fight for me?" "I fix things," Liam repeated, but this time his tone was sharper, more resolute. "And if someone wants to break what I care about, they're going to have to get through me first." That night, they moved. Her ship. It took hours of sweat and gritted teeth, dragging heavy panels through the dark forest and covering them with old tarps and scrap metal. Elari, still weak, guided him with quiet instructions, teaching him how to activate energy disruptors that masked its signal, how to reroute broken circuits into decoys. Her alien hands worked with an elegance that left Liam speechless, even in his exhaustion. By the time dawn's pale light brushed the horizon, the forest looked undisturbed. But Liam knew better. Somewhere out there, something was hunting them. Closing in, he looked at Elari, who stood beside him wrapped in his oversized jacket, her glowing eyes fixed on the sky. "Do they know where you are?" he asked. "They will," she said softly. "They never stop." A chill rippled down Liam's spine. He tightened his jaw and glanced at the crude EMP launcher on his workbench. Whatever was coming, he wouldn't let it take her. The days that followed blurred into a tense rhythm of silence, whispers, and the quiet hum of alien technology pieced back together under Liam's trembling hands. His workshop, once a sanctuary of rusted engines and old radio parts, had transformed into something unrecognizable, a half-human, half-alien war room filled with strange blue lights, flickering holograms, and the faint smell of burning circuits. Each morning, Liam woke to the eerie realization that the girl from the wreck wasn't a dream. Elari was real, sitting cross-legged on the workbench or curled beneath a heavy quilt, her glowing violet eyes always scanning the shadows as if expecting danger to step out at any moment. Liam's days were spent scavenging the scrapyard and nearby junk heaps, pulling out whatever metal or circuits he could salvage, while Elari worked to rebuild a device she called a veil field, a cloaking emitter meant to mask the wreckage's energy signature. It was crude compared to her people's tech, but combined with Liam's human ingenuity, they made progress. Yet each success came with new unease. Every time they powered up the shield for testing, Liam's monitors flickered with static, like something out there was listening, watching. One night, as rain lashed against the workshop roof, Liam returned from the woods with a satchel of copper wiring. He found Elari standing near the window, perfectly still, her silver hair catching the dim glow of his old lamp. She was staring at the trees, not moving, not even blinking. "What is it?" he asked, setting down the satchel. "They're close," she murmured. Liam's stomach tightened. He grabbed the infrared scanner they had modified together and pointed it at the tree line. For a moment, nothing, just the rain and the shadows. Then faint heat signatures, 3 of them, flickered across the screen, moving like predators circling prey. "Hunters?" he whispered. She nodded, her expression grim. "Scouts first. They scan for survivors. Once they know I live, the others." "Come." Liam felt a cold wave wash over him. This was no longer just about fixing her ship, it was survival. "Then we don't let them know," he said, his voice hard. "We make them see nothing." The hours that followed were a whirlwind, a frantic preparation. Elari taught him how to create false emission trails using small, broken energy cores, scattering them through the forest like glowing breadcrumbs. Liam rigged motion sensors, crude tripwires, and even a few improvised EMP bombs made from old microwave coils and car batteries. The hunters might have advanced tech, but Liam knew how to make junk bite back. Later that night, as they tested the jammers, Elari sat on the edge of the workbench, her legs swinging slightly, watching him with a mix of curiosity and something softer he couldn't name. "You are strange," she said suddenly. Thanks? He said, half smiling while twisting wires into place. No, not insult. Strange. Brave. You have no reason to fight for me. He looked up, meeting her glowing gaze. You're hurt, you're hunted, and you didn't ask for any of this. That's reason enough for me. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say more, but the words didn't come. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand lightly. The warmth of her skin surprised him, soft but steady, like the pulse of a star. The moment was shattered by the shrill beep of the scanner. Liam lunged for the screen. 3 bright dots had broken through their false signal maze, moving faster now, straight toward the hidden ship. They've found something, Liam muttered. Maybe the jammers aren't enough. Elari stood, her eyes glowing brighter, color deepening to a fierce amethyst. Then we fight. Liam stared at her. We're outnumbered. I don't even know what these things look like, let alone how to kill them. She tilted her head slightly, a small, sharp smile forming. I do. That night, they left the safety of the workshop and slipped into the woods. Rain dripped through the canopy, masking their movements. The wrecked ship lay buried beneath tarps and energy disruptors, humming faintly like a wounded animal. Liam crouched near one of the decoy emitters, his fingers tight around the grip of his homemade EMI blaster. Every snapped twig, every gust of wind felt like a warning. Then, through the mist, he saw them. 3 tall, jagged silhouettes, their black armor gleaming under the rain. They moved with precision, red visor lights cutting through the darkness like bloodied eyes. Liam's breath caught in his throat. These were not scavengers. They were built to kill. Elari touched his shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. Wait, let them come closer, then strike hard. As the hunters crept toward the ship, scanning with strange tools, Liam's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break his ribs. His hand tightened on the trigger, sweat mixing with the rain on his brow. This was no scrapyard problem to fix, this was life or death. The first hunter stopped, turning its head toward their hiding spot. A faint mechanical growl vibrated through the air. Liam's finger trembled on the trigger. Rain-soaked leaves clung to Liam's boots as he crouched low, his breath coming in shallow, controlled bursts. The 3 hunters stood no more than 20 meters away, their movements slow but deliberate, scanning the forest with an alien precision that made his skin crawl. Each was at least 7 feet tall, their black armor ridged like the hide of some predatory beast. The red glow of their visors sliced through the dark mist, cutting across the undergrowth like silent lasers. Every instinct told Liam to run, but Elari's steady hand on his shoulder anchored him in place. Wait, she whispered, her voice no louder than the patter of rain. They trust their scanners. Let them think they're safe. Liam's fingers tightened on the EMP blaster, its makeshift coil humming faintly in his grip. He had built this weapon from scrap-a-car alternator, parts from an old microwave, and the kind of ingenuity born from too many late nights in his workshop. It wasn't elegant, but Elari had assured him that a well-placed shot would fry a hunter's systems long enough to take it down. He hoped she was right. The first hunter paused near the tarps concealing the wreckage of Elari's ship. A low, mechanical chirp escaped from its helmet, followed by a sweep of its arm as it activated a scanning beam. Liam felt Elari tense beside him. A faint crackle of blue light ran over the tarp, and the hunter tilted its head, as if suspicious but not yet certain. Now? Liam mouthed. Not yet, Elari murmured, her glowing eyes fixed on their targets. She raised her hand slightly. Fingers spread. Liam had seen her do this before, during their first night hiding together, an instinctive ability like calling energy to her fingertips. He could feel the faint buzz of it in the air, as if the forest itself held its breath. Suddenly, the second hunter moved, its visor sweeping toward them. Liam's heart leapt into his throat. The glowing eyes locked on their position, and the alien let out a guttural sound. A warning call. Now, Elari hissed. Liam squeezed the trigger. The MP blaster roared to life with a burst of sizzling energy, lighting the rain with a brilliant flash. The bolt slammed into the nearest hunter's chest, and the alien jerked violently, sparks flying from its armor before it collapsed onto one knee. Elari sprang forward, her otherworldly speed shocking Liam every time he saw it. She slammed her palm against the hunter's helmet, releasing a pulse of violet light that rippled through its armor like lightning. The hunter convulsed and went. Still, 2 left. Liam shouted, scrambling to reload the capacitor. The second hunter lunged toward him, closing the distance in terrifying strides. Liam dove to the side, the heavy claws of the alien tearing through the tree trunk where he had just been crouched. Splinters exploded into the air. Before Liam could fire again, Elari intercepted, her lithe frame twisting as she drove a glowing arc of energy into the creature's side. The alien staggered but didn't fall. It swung its armored arm, catching her and sending her sprawling into the mud. Eli! Liam's voice cracked. He fired again, the EMP blast striking the creature square in the chest. This time, the surge of energy overloaded its systems, and it let out an unearthly shriek before collapsing in a smoking heap. But there was no time to celebrate. The third hunter, larger and more heavily armored than the others, had bypassed them entirely. It was heading straight for the ship. Liam's blood ran cold. If it finds the ship's core, we're done, he shouted. Elari forced herself to her feet, blood silver and shimmering running down her temple. Then we stop it, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. The 2 of them sprinted through the trees, mud splashing beneath their boots. The hunter reached the tarp, ripping it aside with mechanical precision, its red visor scanning the ship's exposed hull. Liam didn't think he threw himself onto the alien's back, the weight difference making the move nearly suicidal. The hunter roared, bucking him off like a ragdoll. He hit the ground hard, the impact jarring every bone in his body. The alien raised its clawed arm to strike, but a flash of violet light cut through the rain. Elari, her face twisted with fury, drove both hands into the creature's chest. Energy rippled out like a shockwave, the ground itself vibrating under the force. The hunter staggered, its armor glowing red-hot before splitting along the seams. A final ear-splitting screech tore through the clearing before it crumpled to the ground, smoke rising from its shattered frame. Liam lay on his back, gasping for breath. "Remind me never to get on your bad side," he muttered, wincing as he sat up. Elari offered him her hand, her expression both fierce and strangely gentle. "You fight like one of us," she said softly. Then, almost as an afterthought, her gaze darkened. But this was only the first wave. Liam's stomach tightened. "First wave? You're saying there's more of them?" She nodded, looking up at the rain-washed sky. "The hunters never stop. And now they know I am not alone." Liam looked toward the smoking wrecks of the fallen aliens, the weight of her words settling like lead in his chest. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. The morning after the battle, the forest felt unnervingly quiet, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Liam stood over the charred remains of the 3 hunters, his chest still sore from the bruises where one of them had thrown him like a ragdoll. The metallic scent of burnt circuitry clung to the air, mixing with the wet earth. He glanced at Elari, who crouched over the remains of the largest hunter, her slender fingers tracing the cracked plates of black armor as if searching for answers. "They were scouts," she said, her voice low but certain. "The others will come." "How many others?" Liam asked, though a part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. Elari looked up, her glowing eyes meeting his. Dozens, hundreds maybe. Hunters are never alone. Once one group fails, more arrive to finish what they started. She touched the side of the ruined helmet, her expression tightening. We have hours at most, a day if we are lucky. Liam swore under his breath. His gaze drifted to the clearing where the ship lay half hidden beneath its tarp and disruptor netting. They had worked tirelessly to conceal it, but he now realized that hiding wouldn't be enough. This wasn't a storm they could simply wait. Out. We can't stay here, he said. We need to plan something bigger than just covering the ship. Elari tilted her head, a faint shimmer of starlight glinting across her hair as the morning sun broke through the clouds. You have a plan? Not yet, Liam admitted. But we can make one. We can make this place a trap. The hours that followed were a blur of motion. Liam's mechanical mind shifted into overdrive, sketching crude diagrams in the dirt, while Elari gathered what salvageable tech she could pull from the fallen hunters. Their alien components were unlike anything he'd seen: energy cells that pulsed like living hearts, blades forged from dark alloys that drank in the light, and strange cube-shaped modules that hummed faintly when touched. They use resonance. Tracking, Elari explained as she cracked open one of the modules. Like echoes. We must drown them in false signals or lead them into chaos. Chaos I can do, Liam said, smirking despite the tightness in his chest. He pointed to the clearing. We set up decoys here, turn this place into a maze of bad readings and magnetic interference. When they land, they won't know what's real. Elari studied him for a long moment, and something in her gaze softened. You are not afraid? Of course I'm afraid, Liam said. But fear just means I care enough not to mess this up. And I'm not letting them take you. By mid-afternoon, the clearing had transformed. Broken engines and old car frames had been rearranged into makeshift barricades. Liam rigged the microwave coils into compact EM traps and strung tripwires across the forest floor. Elari, using fragments of her ship's power core, crafted small devices that emitted pulses of cloaking energy, glimmering orbs that shimmered like stars when active as evening fell. They stood side by side, sweat and dirt streaking their faces. The forest was eerily quiet again, but both of them knew what that meant. They're coming, Elari said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of fear. Then we'll be ready, Liam replied. He checked the EMP blaster strapped to his back and the second one they had built together. If they want to fight, we give them one. The night descended like a curtain of inks, swallowing the forest in shadows. At first, there was only the whisper of wind through the branches, the crackle of leaves underfoot, and the thrum of tension in Liam's chest. Then he heard it, a low, resonant hum that seemed to roll across the sky. He looked up and saw it. A massive black vessel gliding silently above the treetops, its hull shimmering as if woven from liquid shadow. It made no sound beyond the haunting hum of its engines, but Liam felt the vibrations in his bones. They're here, Elari said. Her eyes glowed brighter, the violet hue deepening until they were almost luminescent. The real hunters, figures, began to drop from the ship, 6, then 8, then 10 of them, landing with heavy thuds that shook the earth. They moved in coordinated formation, scanning the clearing with mechanical precision. The red glow of their visors cut through the dark like a warning. Liam crouched behind a barricade, his pulse hammering in his ears. He met Elari's gaze, and for a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them. No turning back, he whispered. No turning back, she agreed. Her hand brushed against his, just a fleeting touch, but it was enough to steady him. The first hunter stepped into the clearing, its scanning beam sweeping across the tarp-covered ship. A tripwire clicked. The EMP trap ignited with a crack of light, frying its sensors in an instant. Sparks burst from its armor as it staggered. Disoriented, Liam rose, aimed, and fired. The blaster roared, lighting up the clearing. The shot slammed into the hunter's chest, sending it crashing backward. "Now!" Elari shouted. Her voice carried a tone Liam had never heard before, sharp, commanding, like someone who had faced war before. She leapt forward, her hands glowing. With raw energy, unleashing a pulse that knocked two more hunters off their feet, the battle erupted in chaos. The night filled with the crackle of EMP blasts, the screech of alien metal, and the unyielding hum of the hunter ship overhead. Liam moved through the trees, his breath ragged, firing shot after shot as the traps detonated in bright bursts of blue light. Elari fought like nothing he had ever seen, her every movement precise and unrelenting, energy radiating from her palms like the fury of a star. But for every hunter they took down, more appeared at the edge of the clearing. Liam's stomach sank. As he reloaded, "There's too many of them," he panted. Elari's jaw tightened. "Then we make them believe the ship is destroyed. Follow me." She sprinted toward the wreck, and Liam, without hesitation, followed. Together they made a desperate push, their traps firing one after another, buying precious seconds. The hunters, realizing their quarry was moving, began to converge. Elari slammed her palm against a control panel on the wreck, sparks flying as she rewired the remaining power core. "Cover me," she said. "Cover you? What are you before?" He could finish. The ground shook. The wrecked ship's systems roared to life, glowing with a blinding surge of energy. Liam fired at the incoming hunters, his shots echoing like thunder. The clearing filled with a sudden deafening pulse as Elari triggered the core's overload sequence. A shock wave of white-blue energy rippled outward, slamming into the hunters with bone-rattling force. The closest ones were thrown like ragdolls into the trees, their armor sparking and cracking. When the light faded, the clearing was silent. Elari collapsed against the ship, her body trembling. Liam ran to her side, his chest heaving. "What did you just do?" She looked at him, her lips trembling into the faintest smile. "I made them think the ship is gone, but we have to move. They'll be back, with more." Liam glanced at the wreck, its core now dim, the disguise convincing even to him. "Then we find another way. But we're not running anymore." The forest still smoldered from the battle, acrid smoke curling up between the trees like ghostly fingers. Liam stood over the shattered remains of a hunter, his chest rising and falling with every sharp breath. The clearing that had once held. Elari's ship was now a graveyard of twisted metal and scorched earth. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the drip of rainwater from the leaves and the distant crackle of a fire dying in the undergrowth. Elari sat on a fallen log nearby, her silver hair matted and tangled, her glowing eyes dim with exhaustion. The overload of the ship's core had taken more out of her than she was willing to admit. Liam crouched next to her, pulling the torn edges of his jacket around her shoulders. "We need to leave," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but it wasn't fear, just bone-deep fatigue. "Leave?" Liam frowned. "If we go, they'll follow. And if they follow, they'll keep coming until—" He trailed off, his mind conjuring images he didn't want to see. "They will not stop," Elari said softly, her gaze distant. "My people are explorers, not soldiers. We run, we hide. But these hunters—" She looked at the wreckage around them, her jaw tightening. "They do not forgive survivors." Liam's hands curled into fists. "Then we stop hiding. We make this our ground." Elari tilted her head, studying him, as if trying to decide if he was brave or foolish. "You are only one human. You cannot stand against what is coming." He met her gaze with steady determination. "Then we'll make them believe I'm not just one human." For the next 2 days, Liam and Elari worked like people possessed. The clearing became a labyrinth of traps, jammers, and improvised defenses. Liam raided every corner of his workshop, scavenging old car batteries, scrap metal, and every coil of copper wire he could find. Elari showed him how to modify the alien cores they'd salvaged from the fallen hunters, turning them into pulsing energy mines that could fry anything electronic within a few meters. By night, they slept in shifts. Liam would wake to find her outside under the stars, her hand raised as if tracing constellations only she could see. When he asked what she was doing, she simply said, "I am listening. My people believe the stars carry whispers of what is coming." The third night, the whispers became reality. Liam was checking a perimeter tripwire when the scanner on his belt buzzed, flashing a string of alien glyphs Elari had taught him to recognize. Incoming. Multiple signals. "Eli," he hissed, sprinting back to the workshop. She was already there, her eyes glowing brighter, her posture tense. "They've found us," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. Liam grabbed his EMP blaster, slinging a second one over her shoulder. "Then let's make this count." The first sign of the attack was the sound, or rather, the absence of it. The forest went utterly still, as if even the wind knew to hide. Then a single piercing hum rolled across the treetops, deep and mechanical. Liam looked up and felt his stomach drop. A massive ship hovered above the canopy, its underside bristling with spires of black alloy that crackled with energy. This was no scout ship. This was a war machine. "Run, and we might survive," Elari murmured, her gaze fixed on the beastly silhouette. "Stay, and we must win." Liam took a deep breath, fingers tightening around his weapon. "We've come too far to run now." The hunters dropped from the ship and waved sleek, armored forms that landed with heavy, synchronized thuds. There were at least 15 of them, moving with terrifying precision. Liam and Elari retreated to the first barricade, crouching low behind rusted car frames as the hunters advanced. The traps went off one by one, EMP bursts lighting up the clearing in flashes of blue, mines exploding with metallic screams as the hunters staggered under the barrage. But it wasn't enough. "Too many," Liam muttered, reloading as fast. As his trembling hands would allow, Elari closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them, they blazed brighter than ever, her entire body radiating faint violet light. "Then I will give them something they cannot ignore." "What are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped out from behind cover, raising her hands high. The hunters turned as one, targeting her glowing form. "Eli, get back!" Liam shouted, but before he could move, she unleashed a surge of energy so powerful the ground trembled beneath his feet. A sphere of violet lightning erupted outward, slamming into the hunters with the force of a storm. Their armor sparked and cracked, systems failing as they collapsed like puppets with their strings cut. The warship above the trees roared, its spires charging. Liam's blood turned cold. "They're going to fire." Elari staggered, the energy burst having drained her strength. She collapsed to her knees, and Liam ran to her, grabbing her arm. "We need to finish this." "Can your core trick them again?" She nodded weakly, pointing toward the wreck. "Overload, but this time we detonate." The plan was suicidal, but they had no choice. Together they raced to the ship, dodging broken debris and sparking wires. Liam carried Elari's weight as she programmed the remaining power cells to cascade into a massive surge. The hunters were regrouping, their warship lowering through the canopy. Time was running out. "Once this starts, there's no stopping it," Elari warned, her voice ragged. "Then we make sure we're not standing here when it goes off," Liam said, hauling her toward the tunnel they had dug earlier. A deafening hum filled the air as the power core began to spike, glowing so bright it hurt to look at. 3 minutes, Elari whispered. "Maybe less." Liam held her hand as they sprinted through the tunnel. branches whipping their faces as they emerged into the deeper forest. Behind them, the clearing pulsed like the heart of a dying star. Then, with a roar that shook the sky, the core detonated. The explosion lit up the night like a second sun, a wave of energy tearing through the trees, shredding the hunters and the warship above. Liam threw himself over Elari, shielding her as the shock wave rolled over them. The ground quaked. The world went white. When the light faded, silence fell. The warship was gone, its wreckage scattered across the forest like broken. Glass-Dot Liam lay on his back, chest heaving, his ears ringing. Elari stirred beside him, her fingers gripping his hand. "It's over," she whispered, though there was no triumph in her voice, only exhaustion. "For now." Liam looked at the burning horizon and knew she was right. This was only a reprieve, not a victory. The forest was still burning when dawn came. Smoke drifted in ghostly trails above the tree line, and a faint orange glow flickered between the charred stumps where Elari's ship had once stood. Liam sat on the edge of a fallen log, his head in his hands, every muscle in his body aching from the fight. His ears still rang from the blast that had obliterated the hunters and the warship, and his clothes were streaked with mud, ash, and blood. But they were alive. Somehow they had survived. Beside him, Elari stirred, her silver hair tangled and glinting faintly in the early light. She had collapsed the night before, drained from the sheer amount of energy she had unleashed. Liam turned to her as her glowing violet eyes blinked open, dazed but calm. "Morning," he said, voice hoarse. She studied his face for a long moment before whispering, "We won." Liam almost laughed, but the sound came out hollow. "We bought ourselves time, maybe, but not enough." Elari looked away, toward the wreckage of the hunters scattered across the clearing. "The hunters will send more," she said softly. "When their signal fails, they always send more." Liam ran a hand through his damp, messy hair. "Then we make sure they have nothing to find." He gestured at the debris. "We'll bury every piece of this, hide what we can't destroy. And if they come again, we'll be ready." They spent the next hours tearing apart the remains of the hunter ship, salvaging anything they could use. Liam scavenged intact power cells and strange black alloy plates that he thought could be reforged into shields. Elari worked with silent precision, her hands glowing as she manipulated alien circuitry, converting it into tools and cloaking devices. While they worked, Liam couldn't help glancing at her. Despite everything, the battles, the fear, there was something unshakable about her presence now. She no longer looked like the terrified girl he had found curled up in the wreckage. There was strength in her gaze, a quiet fire that made him realize she was no longer just trying to survive. She was choosing to fight. As dusk fell, Elari found a black box embedded in the wreckage, its surface cracked but still active. "This is a data core," she explained, her fingers brushing over the glowing runes. "It contains messages, maps, perhaps even the hunter's orders." Liam frowned. "Can you read it?" She hesitated. "Yes, but you may not like what we find." They activated the core that night, sitting side by side in Liam's workshop. The box flickered to life, projecting a hologram of star systems, each marked with faint crimson sigils. Elari's eyes widened, fear flashing across her face. "What is it?" Liam asked. "It's a purge order," she whispered. "Not just. For me, for my people. Thesaria has fallen." Her voice cracked slightly, and for the first time, Liam saw the weight of loss in her eyes. "The hunters are not bounty killers. They are the vanguard of something larger, a war fleet that consumes everything." Liam stared at the hologram, feeling the air thicken around him. "And Earth?" Elari didn't look at him when she answered. "It's on their list. They've already mapped your world's defenses. They know you exist now. You are no longer invisible." The words hit Liam like a punch. He looked around his cluttered workshop, this tiny, forgotten corner of Earth, and felt a surge of anger. So what? We just let them come? Let them wipe us out? No, Elari said, turning to face him, her gaze steady. We fight. We run. We build. Whatever it takes, we prepare. That night, under a sky burning with starlight, Liam and Elari made a pact. They would not wait for the next wave of hunters to descend. They would strike first, using what they had, human ingenuity and alien technology, to build something stronger, something the hunters could not anticipate. Over the next few weeks, the workshop transformed. With Elari's guidance, Liam forged weapons unlike anything Earth had ever seen, blasters powered by salvaged cores, cloaking fields made from alien disruptors, and crude but powerful MP bombs. They trained together every night, moving through the forest, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, but it wasn't just about preparing for war. Something deeper began to grow between them. In the quiet moments when they were too tired to speak, Liam would catch Elari looking at him, her expression soft and unguarded. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, she said quietly, "You are not like others I have known. You see me. Not as an alien, not as a danger, just as me." Liam felt heat rise to his face. "You're more human than half. The people I've met," he said with a crooked smile, "and I'm not letting you go through this alone." Weeks later, just as the forest began to heal from the fires, the black box flickered again. A faint signal pulsed through the workshop, a coded message in alien glyphs. Elari deciphered it with trembling hands. "They're coming," she said. "The war fleet. It's closer than I thought." Liam's jaw tightened. He looked at the weapons laid out on his workbench, the devices they had built together. Then, "We're ready for them," he said, his voice steady but fierce. "And if they want this planet, they're going to have to go through us." Elari stepped closer, her fingers brushing his. "Then we fight together." He squeezed her hand, looking into her glowing eyes, and felt something shift deep inside him. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war. And it was the beginning of something far greater than either of them. As the stars burned overhead, brighter than ever, Liam whispered, "Let them come."